Kicked out at 16 because my dad's new wife didn't want me. Now he forced his way back, claiming he wanted to be a grandfather, until one late confession exposed the truth he'd hidden and quietly shifted all the power. When I was 15, my whole world flipped. My mom died from cancer after fighting it for 2 years. She was tough as nails, but the disease just kept chewing her down until there wasn't much left of her. Watching that happen to the person who basically built your whole life changes you. I was still just a kid, and suddenly everything felt empty. For a while after the funeral, it was just me and Dad trying to survive. We weren't good at it. He'd order pizza 3 nights in a row. Laundry piled up until we were both wearing our same wrinkled hoodies to school and work. Some nights we just sat on the couch eating cold leftovers, watching whatever old movie Mom used to love. It wasn't happy, but it was at least ours. It felt like me and Dad against the world. That lasted maybe 6 months before Dad met Lucy. At first, I wasn't mad about it. I knew he was lonely, and honestly, part of me thought maybe it would be good for him. Mom always told me Dad wasn't great at being alone, and I figured if he found someone, maybe he'd smile again. And that's what I wanted, right? To see him smile. Lucy looked like the type of woman who'd be in magazines. Perfect hair, makeup always on point, expensive-looking outfits that didn't belong in our middle-class neighborhood. She had this laugh that Dad ate up like candy around him. She was sweet. She'd ask about my grades, smile at me, even bring me cookies once like she was trying to play cool stepmom. Dad fell for it immediately, but when he wasn't around, it was a whole different game. It started small. She'd make comments about my clothes being sloppy, or that I tracked dirt in the house from basketball practice. She'd say it in this tone like it wasn't advice, it was judgment. Then it grew into stuff that actually messed with me. Once I had this big math test and I left the review packet on the kitchen counter. Next morning, it was gone. I asked her if she'd seen it, and she tilted her head all innocent. "Oh, maybe you misplaced it." A week later, Dad sat me down angry because my teacher called saying I didn't turn in homework. Funny thing, I had finished it. I know because I put it in my backpack. Somehow it disappeared. You probably see the pattern. She'd act nice in front of Dad like she was looking out for me. Then, behind the scenes, she'd twist stuff so I looked lazy or careless. Every time I tried to explain it to Dad, I sounded paranoid. Lucy lost my homework, or Lucy threw out my stuff. It just made me sound like a bitter kid who didn't want a stepmom. He'd sigh and tell me to give her a chance, or don't be so negative. Meanwhile, Lucy kept turning the screws. One night, she cooked dinner, a rare event, and made some fancy pasta. I don't even like mushrooms, so I picked them out. She laughed, but not in a funny way. "Wow, no wonder your grades aren't great, can't even eat like an adult." Then, when Dad came home, she told him I was disrespectful at the table. He gave me this disappointed look that felt like a knife. I didn't even know what to say without sounding like I was whining. The worst part, the house didn't feel like mine anymore. Mom had filled it with pictures, crafts, little things she made. Lucy slowly started moving those into boxes. She said they made the place feel cluttered and sad, but it didn't feel sad to me. It felt like home. When she replaced Mom's stuff with modern decorations and glass sculptures, the place looked like a furniture store. Cold, quiet, not mine. I tried spending more time out of the house, basketball practice, hanging at friends' places, even just sitting at the library pretending to study. Coming back home felt like walking into enemy territory. Dad, though, he looked happier than I'd seen him since before Mom got sick. He'd smile more, laugh at her jokes, dress nicer. And that's what killed me. 'Cause how could I tell him the woman who made him laugh was making my life hell the second he left the room? I didn't want to be the jealous kid who couldn't handle his dad dating again. So I kept it inside. But keeping it inside was like letting her win. Every time she caught me alone, I could feel her smirk, like she knew she had me trapped, like she knew I couldn't prove anything. The one thing that kept me going was remembering Mom. She always said I was tougher than I thought. I clung to that because every day with Lucy felt like a test. And the worst part, I knew it was only the beginning. By the time I was 16, I realized this wasn't just some rocky adjustment. Lucy wasn't going anywhere, and if Dad couldn't see what she was doing, then I was on my own. Things went from bad to worse real fast. About 8 months after they met, Dad told me he was marrying Lucy. Just like that. No family talk, no how do you feel about this. He just came home one evening standing in the kitchen with this big grin like he'd won the lottery and said, "We're getting married." I remember standing there with a mouthful of cereal, staring at him like he was joking. He wasn't. I didn't even find out when or where until my aunt called asking if I needed a ride to the ceremony. She'd gotten her invite in the mail. That's how much I mattered in the whole thing. Dad's own kid found out through someone else. The wedding itself was a blur. Fancy place, people I'd never met. Lucy's side dressed like they were going to a fashion show. Me? I was in a second-hand suit that didn't fit right. I stood in the corner most of the time watching my dad dance with his new wife while I felt like an extra in my own life. After they tied the knot, Lucy's mask slipped all the way off. She wasn't even pretending around me anymore. That house, it didn't just feel cold now. It felt like I was a guest overstaying my welcome, and the breaking point for me wasn't even the little stuff she'd done before. It was the garden. My mom loved her garden. It was the only thing that gave her peace during those last years with cancer. She couldn't always get out of bed, but when she could, she'd sit in a chair out there watching her flowers and vegetables grow. She said it made her feel like she was still building something, still alive in a way. Even when she got really weak, she'd ask me to water it for her, trim the dead leaves. It was the last piece of her that still felt alive after she passed. One afternoon, I came home from school and saw Lucy out there with gloves on, pulling plants out by the roots and tossing them into black trash bags. The flower beds were half emptied. Soil scattered everywhere like a crime scene. My chest locked up. I dropped my backpack on the driveway and stormed over. "What the hell are you doing?" I snapped. My voice cracked and I didn't care. Lucy looked up like she was annoyed I interrupted her chore. "This garden attracts insects," she said flatly. "It needs to be gone." That was it. No apology, no explanation, just cold dismissal like it was trash. I felt my face heat up. This was Mom's. It was the only thing she cared about when she was sick. And you're just ripping it out like it's weeds. Who the hell do you think you are? She didn't flinch, didn't even blink, just shrugged and went back to pulling up flowers like I was some annoying kid having a tantrum. Something in me broke right there. I'd put up with her snide comments, her fake smiles, the way she twisted things when Dad wasn't home, but this, destroying the one place that still felt like Mom was near, I couldn't hold back. I started yelling, my words tumbling out so fast I barely knew what I was saying. I called her selfish, cruel, heartless, everything I'd been bottling up. Then, right in the middle of my explosion, Dad came outside. "What's going on out here?" he barked. Before I could get a word out, Lucy dropped her gloves dramatically and held her hands up like she was the victim of a robbery. "He's been screaming at me for no reason. I was just cleaning up the yard and he started attacking me." Her voice even cracked like she was about to cry. I spun to Dad, desperate for him to believe me. "That's not what happened. She's ripping out Mom's garden." "The one Mom—" Slap. I didn't even see his hand coming. My cheek burned, and for a second all I could hear was the ringing in my ears. Dad had never hit me before, not once. I just stood there frozen, staring at him. "She's your stepmother now," he snapped. "You will not disrespect her in this house." My throat closed up. I wanted to scream, to tell him everything. How she'd been sabotaging me for months. How she wasn't who he thought she was. But standing there with my cheek stinging, and Lucy giving me that smug little smirk behind his back, I knew it didn't matter. He wasn't going to listen. He'd already chosen his side. So I didn't fight. I picked up my backpack, walked past both of them, and went to my room. I shut the door, sat on the bed, and stared at my wall until it was dark outside. That was the night I realized I'd lost my dad for real. Not to death like Mom, but to a woman who knew exactly how to play him. And me? I decided right then that trying to prove myself in that house was a lost cause. So I buried my head in school and sports, counting the days until I could get out. The only thing keeping me sane was the idea of college. Mom and I had mapped it out. Community college for 2 years while living at home, then transfer to State University to finish my degree. She wanted me to have a shot at something better than just scraping by. That plan was my anchor. When I got my acceptance letter, it felt like I finally had something solid. Partial scholarship. It didn't cover everything, but with Mom's college savings and staying at home, it would have worked. I remember holding that letter like it was a golden ticket. I even showed it to Dad, and for a second I swear I saw pride flicker in his eyes. But Lucy was standing behind him, and the moment he looked at her, that flicker went out. A couple weeks later, I went to check the savings account Mom had set up for me. It was a custodial account. She managed it while she was alive, but after she passed, Dad still had legal access. Balance 0. At first, I thought maybe I clicked the wrong account. I double-checked. Nothing. I confronted Dad that night. The screen still pulled up on my laptop. "Where's Mom's savings?" I asked. He didn't even look guilty. He just sighed like I was being dramatic. "We had to use it. The house needed work. Lucy wanted to make this place livable. Livable. He'd blown my mom's last gift to me on new furniture, fancy curtains, and God knows what else.
I saw red.
That money was for college. Mom saved that for me. He cut me off. Don't start, you'll figure it out. Loans, jobs, whatever, everyone does. I just stared at him, stunned. The man who used to brag to my mom's friends about how smart I was, how I'd be the first to go to university in the family, had just told me to figure it out like I was a stranger asking for cash. Still, I held on to the plan. Even without the savings, I thought maybe I could scrape by if I stayed home. But Lucy had other ideas. The night it blew up is burned into my brain. We were sitting at the dinner table, me, Dad, and Lucy. I mentioned my acceptance, said I'd be living at home while I finished the first 2 years, just like Mom and I planned. Lucy dropped her fork like I'd insulted her. Absolutely not. I didn't marry your father to live with a teenager. You need to learn independence. I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. This is my home, I said. Mom and I— Your mother isn't here, she snapped, her eyes cold. And this is our house now. You're turning 17 soon. Time to grow up. I turned to Dad, waiting for him to shut her down, to remind her I was his kid and this was the plan all along. But he didn't. He chewed his steak, swallowed, and said, she's right. Dorm life will build character. I felt my chest cave in. We can't afford dorms, I said, my voice shaking. The scholarship only covers tuition. Room and board is more than I make at my job. How the hell am I supposed to? Lucy waved her hand like I was boring her. Get a better job. Take out loans. That's what adults do. Stop expecting handouts. I sat there gripping my fork so hard my hand hurt. I wanted to scream, but what was the point? Dad was nodding along like she'd just given me life advice instead of kicking me out. That night I called Uncle Terry, my mom's brother. He ran a small garage and had always been straight with me. When I told him what happened, there was this long pause. Then he said, pack your stuff. I'll be there this weekend. 2 days later, I was shoving my clothes into garbage bags. Dad stood in the doorway, arms crossed, looking uncomfortable.
He muttered things like, this doesn't have to be permanent. And,
once you're on your feet, we can figure something out. I ignored him. When I walked past him with the first bag, I finally looked him in the eye. You let her take Mom's savings. You let her destroy everything Mom left behind. And now you're letting her kick me out because she doesn't want me around. You're not even trying to stop it. His mouth opened like he was about to make excuses, but I cut him off. Mom would be ashamed of you. He flinched, but he didn't argue, didn't stop me. He just helped load the bags into the back of Uncle Terry's truck when he arrived. Not a single word of goodbye. As we pulled out of the driveway, I didn't look back. That house wasn't my home anymore. Maybe it never had been after Mom died. Moving in with Uncle Terry felt weird at first. His place smelled like motor oil and old coffee, and the TV was almost always stuck on some car auction channel, but it was safe. He didn't make me feel like an intruder. First thing he said when I dragged in my garbage bags of clothes was, well, at least you pack lighter than your dad's excuses. That's Terry for you. Always had a sharp tongue, but never aimed it at me in a way that hurt. When I told him what happened about Dad siding with Lucy and blowing through Mom's savings, he shook his head. Figures. Your old man's got the backbone of a wet sponge. Lucy says jump and he asks how high. If your mom was here, she'd have knocked him into next week. I laughed for the first time in months. It felt good. Terry wasn't gentle about stuff, but he was honest. He never tiptoed around my feelings. He just said what everyone else was probably thinking, but too polite to say. College started rough. Even with the scholarship, money was tight. I picked up shifts at the campus bookstore, worked nights delivering food, and even cleaned classrooms on weekends. Half my life was textbooks, and the other half was crappy uniforms. I barely slept. There were nights I thought, maybe Lucy was right. Maybe I can't handle this. Then I'd hear Terry's voice in my head. Your dad managed to screw up with 2 incomes. You're already beating him by just showing up. After that first semester, commuting from Terry's, I realized it wasn't sustainable. The drive killed my study time. So I moved into the cheapest dorms on campus, hoping it would save my sanity. Instead, it just drained my wallet faster. Tuition was covered, but the housing cost stacked up until 1 month later. I came up short and got a warning from the dorm office. Pay or get out. I sat in that tiny room staring at the letter, panic clawing at my stomach. I called Terry. I hated asking for help, but I had no choice. He didn't even let me finish explaining. How much? He asked. I told him. All right, he said, I'll wire it tonight. And don't you dare feel bad about it. Think of it as me investing in not letting you turn out like your dad. The way he said it, half serious, half roast, made me snort, even though I was on the verge of tears. That was the first of many times Terry bailed me out, not just with money, though he did that more than once, but with advice. Anytime I started doubting myself, he'd remind me how much Mom believed in me. She'd smack me if I let you give up, he'd joke, so do me a favor and make her proud. I'm too old to be getting smacked by ghosts. Sophomore year is when things finally started to shift. I was good at coding, better than I thought I'd be. I switched my major to software engineering and for the first time actually felt like I was building a future instead of just trying not to drown. That's also when I met Kayla in statistics class. She always sat in the front with these color-coded notes like she was running a war plan. I was in the back row half asleep trying to survive. One day, I forgot my calculator, and she slid hers across the table without even looking at me, just whispered, "Don't forget to clear it." After class, I caught up to her and said, "Thanks." She smiled like it was no big deal. But something about the way she did it stuck in my head. She had this mix of focus and humor that made boring lectures feel lighter. Slowly, we started studying together. She'd push me to actually finish my assignments instead of half-assing them. I'd make her laugh with dumb jokes about our professors. Balance. Terry noticed right away. "So, you're smiling at your phone a lot lately. Don't tell me your dad finally texted an apology." I rolled my eyes. "It's a girl, thank God," he said. "For a second I thought you were finally losing it and laughing at spam emails." Kayla became the first person I trusted outside of Terry. She didn't know the full story yet, but she knew enough. That my mom died, that my dad basically disappeared into a new marriage, that I was doing this mostly on my own. Instead of pity, she gave me respect. That was new for me. By junior year, life felt stable, which was a word I hadn't used since I was a kid. My grades were strong. My job at the bookstore gave me steady hours, and Kayla and I were solid. I'd crash at Terry's place on holidays instead of going home. Home wasn't Dad's house anymore. It hadn't been in years. Sometimes Terry would ask if I'd heard from Dad. I'd shake my head. He'd shrug. "Better for your blood pressure. Man's allergic to responsibility." Other times he'd roast him harder, like when I mentioned Lucy redecorating. "Your dad never needed a woman to rearrange the furniture. He's been rearranging his priorities the wrong way his whole life." I should have been bitter. But with Terry cracking jokes about it, I found myself laughing instead of crying. He had a way of pulling the sting out and replacing it with sarcasm. Maybe that's why I survived those years instead of crumbling. Looking back, I don't know how I managed it all. Classes, jobs, bills, relationships. But I do know one thing. I wouldn't have made it without Uncle Terry. While my dad was busy playing house with Lucy, Terry became the dad I actually needed. And that made me even more certain that when the time came, I wouldn't let my real father sneak back in like nothing happened. For a long time, I didn't even have to worry about it. He didn't call, didn't write, didn't even pretend to care. And honestly, that was easier. It let me focus on school, work, Kayla, and just building a life without the constant shadow of him and Lucy. Years passed. Kayla and I graduated, moved in together, started piecing our adult lives. Then I proposed. I kept it simple, just the two of us. But Kayla's yes was everything. We posted one photo online, her showing off the ring, and I swear my phone blew up within an hour. Friends, CO workers, people I hadn't talked to in years. And then there was his name. I'd already blocked him, but the voicemails were still stacked up in that hidden folder, his name showing right there. My stomach turned. It was him. "Son, I heard the news. I want to talk. I miss you." I didn't call back. Why would I? He'd had chance after chance, and he burned them all. Then Uncle Terry called me a week later. Apparently Dad had tracked him down too. Terry was half amused, half annoyed. "Your old man showed up at my garage looking like a kicked dog. Said he wanted to make things right. I told him the only thing he was making right was my headache, and then I shut the door in his face." I laughed, but there was that knot in my chest. He never gave up anything easily, and I had a feeling this was just the beginning. Turns out I was right. A year or so later, I heard through relatives that Lucy had left him. Rumor was she found someone with more money and she didn't even hide it. Took a good chunk of his cash on the way out too. Can't say I was surprised. She used him like a credit card with legs. The part that got me, he didn't reach out again right away. It wasn't until Kayla and I announced we were expecting that he suddenly remembered he had a son. At first, it was little things, a friend request on social media, then liking Kayla's pregnancy posts. When that didn't work, he started messaging her directly. Paragraphs about wanting to be a grandfather, how family is everything, how he regretted the past. Kayla showed me the messages, her eyebrows raised. "Do you want me to block him?" she asked. I told her yes. I wasn't about to let him slither in through her, but he didn't stop. He never stops when he thinks he's owed something. One afternoon, I walked into a client meeting at work. Software pitch, nothing huge. The receptionist buzzed me, said my new client was waiting. I opened the door and almost tripped over myself. Sitting there, dressed like he was going to a job interview, was my dad. "Surprise," he said, grinning like this was some sitcom reunion. I froze. "You're not a client." I wanted to talk. This seemed like the only way you'd listen. I swear I wanted to throw him out myself. Instead, I told the receptionist to cancel the meeting and walked away. He followed me to the elevator, begging for a chance. I didn't give him one. I left him standing there, looking smaller than I'd ever seen. I wish that was the last time. A month later, Kayla's family hosted a holiday dinner. Big gathering, lots of food, kids running around. Halfway through, the doorbell rang. Guess who? Dad stood there with a pie in his hands like he belonged. Kayla's mom looked confused, but I knew right away. He must have found Rose on Facebook through mutuals and then sweet-talked her into giving him the address. He tried to hug me like nothing had happened. I backed away. "Leave," I told him. He started in with the whole, "I'm sorry, I just want to be part of this family" speech. Kayla stepped in, her voice sharper than mine. "Not your call. Go." He left after a few awkward minutes, pie still in his hands, but the night was tainted. What made it worse was knowing it wasn't just about love. He was broke. Everyone knew it. Lucy had bled him dry, and now he was scrambling. I couldn't shake the feeling that crawling back to me wasn't about being a father or a grandfather. It was about survival. He wanted the stability I'd built, the family I had. Terry summed it up perfectly one night when I vented to him about it. He doesn't want a son, he wants a life raft. Don't be the idiot who lets him climb on board while you drown. He was right. Every time I saw Dad, he didn't look like someone who wanted to reconnect. He looked like someone who was desperate not to be alone, not to face the consequences of his choices. And the more he pushed, the more I knew I couldn't let him back in. Because letting him in would mean letting all that pain, all that betrayal, all that fake regret right into the life Kayla and I were building. And I wasn't about to let him ruin what I'd fought this hard to protect. Problem was, everyone else suddenly thought it was their business. Word got around the family fast, probably because Dad made sure of it. He started calling uncles, cousins, even my grandparents, telling them how I was keeping him away from his grandchild. Next thing I know, my phone is blowing up with messages. Family is family. Don't be petty. You'll regret this when he's gone. One cousin even told me, "Your dad just wants a second chance. Don't you think your kid deserves a grandfather?" I read that text and almost threw my phone across the room. My kid deserves stability, love. Someone who actually shows up, not a man who let me get kicked out at 16 because his wife didn't want me around. When I vented to Uncle Terry, he barked out a laugh so hard he almost choked on his coffee. Second chance. That man's on chance number 12. Tell your cousin if your dad wanted to be a grandfather so bad, maybe he should have tried being a father first. It helped to hear him say that, but it didn't stop the noise. Every day it was like someone new was trying to guilt me. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, Kayla's mom, Rose, got pulled in. Now, Rose is sweet, but she's one of those people who believes everyone can be fixed with a hug and a casserole. She called me one afternoon, all serious, and said, "I've been talking to your father. He seems truly sorry. I think you should give him a chance." In fact, I invited him to the gender reveal party. I nearly dropped the phone. "You what?" She rushed in with the explanations before I could blow up. "He reached out to me through one of your aunts. He sounded so genuine, so heartbroken. He just wants to be there. Family is important, honey. This baby is going to need all the love they can get." I was pacing the living room, my blood boiling. "Did he also tell you he let Lucy kick me out when I was 17? That he stole the college savings Mom left me and spent it on redecorating? That when I begged him to stand up for me, he slapped me across the face and told me to respect her?" Silence. For the first time since I'd known Rose, she didn't have a single word. "That wasn't a falling out," I continued. "That was abandonment. He chose a woman he'd known for months over his own son. He didn't just mess up. He made deliberate choices. And now that she's gone and he's broke, he suddenly remembers he has a kid." "Absolutely not." Rose cleared her throat, softer now. I didn't know it was that serious. He told me you two just had a disagreement when you were younger." I laughed bitterly. "A disagreement? That's what he calls it? Try losing your home, your future, your father, all in one night, and then tell me it's a disagreement." She sighed, clearly rattled. But then she fell back on her favorite line. Everyone deserves a second chance, don't they? I felt my jaw clench. Not when they've spent every first chance burning the bridge down. This isn't about me anymore, Rose. This is about my child, and I'll be damned if I let her grow up thinking she can depend on someone like him. Kayla, who'd been listening in from the couch, finally grabbed the phone. Her voice was calm but firm. Mom, if he shows up at that party, we're leaving. I don't care what excuse you give. But he's not welcome. This is our celebration, not a reunion for people who abandoned us. Rose tried to protest something about how awkward it would be to uninvite him, but Kayla didn't let her finish. Awkward is better than toxic. Either he's out or we're out. That ended the call. Afterward, I sat on the couch with my head in my hands. I could already imagine it. Rose wavering, Dad sweet-talking her, somehow finding a way to weasel into that party.
He'd been ignored, blocked, rejected, and still popped up like a bad penny. Why would this be any different?
Terry came over that evening, dropping off some tools he said I needed for future dad duty. When I told him what Rose had done, he let out a low whistle. Man, she's got the judgment of a goldfish. Inviting him after everything, that's like hiring a fox to babysit the hen house. I cracked a small smile despite the stress. You really think he's going to show? Oh, absolutely, Terry said. Your dad loves two things, making himself the victim and ignoring boundaries. He'll show up with some cheesy grin and a gift bag he couldn't afford, hoping everyone claps for him. He was probably right, and that's what kept me awake that night because I wasn't sure how much longer I could hold in the anger. For years, I swallowed it down, tried to keep moving forward. But if he showed up at the gender reveal, I knew I'd snap. And this time, there'd be no holding back. The gender reveal started out exactly how Kayla and I wanted it. Simple, surrounded by people who'd actually been there for us. The venue was all decked out in pink and blue balloons, cupcakes stacked on the table, everyone buzzing with guesses. Kayla looked incredible in her dress, smiling, even though I knew she'd been stressed about Rose's little surprise guest stunt. Uncle Terry was making the rounds, cracking jokes and keeping the mood light. For an hour, it felt normal. It felt good. Then I saw him. My dad stood near the entrance holding a gift bag, trying to look like he belonged. My stomach sank. He wasn't supposed to be there. Rose hovered beside him, wringing her hands like she already knew she'd screwed up. I walked straight over. You need to leave, I said, low so it wouldn't turn into a scene. He shook his head. Not this time. I missed too much already. I'm not missing this. Anger lit me up. I could feel Kayla's eyes on me from across the room, waiting to see what I'd do. Guests had started to notice. The music's still playing, but quieter now. Leave, I repeated. My voice cracked louder this time. This isn't your moment. You don't get to force your way back in. He clutched the gift bag tighter, his hands shaking. Then out of nowhere, his voice broke. I have cancer. The room went dead silent. I froze, staring at him. Don't, I snapped. Don't you dare use that as another excuse to guilt me. I'm not lying, he said quickly, fumbling with the bag. He pulled out copies of his oncology reports and handed them to me with trembling hands. Stage 4. They told me I don't have much time. I came because I didn't want my last chance with you to be me standing outside your life. For a second, I just held the folder. I didn't want to open it, didn't want to give him the satisfaction of believing he'd found another way in. But Uncle Terry walked over, snatched it from my hands and flipped it open. His face dropped. He wasn't the type to play along with games. He closed it slowly, handed it back and said, It's real. My chest caved in. I wanted to deny it, call it a trick, but the look on Terry's face told me otherwise. My dad wasn't bluffing this time. He sank into a chair near the door, his shoulders sagging. I screwed up, I know that. I let Lucy run everything. I let her push you out and I was too much of a coward to fight her. I thought I'd have more time to fix it, but now there isn't any. His voice cracked, tears rolling down his face. I don't want to die knowing I never tried to make it right. I stood there shaking, my throat tight. For years I dreamed of confronting him, tearing into him for everything he'd done. Now he was sitting in front of me, broken, dying, and all that rage inside me didn't feel the same anymore. Kayla came over, slipped her hand into mine. She didn't say a word, just squeezed. I knelt down, leveled my eyes with his. I don't forgive you, I said quietly, firm. You chose her over me. You spent Mom's savings like it meant nothing. You slapped me when I begged you to protect her garden. You left me to figure out life alone. Those wounds don't just disappear because you're sick. He nodded, tears still falling. I know. I don't expect forgiveness. I want a chance to be here, even if it's only for a little while. I swallowed hard, my vision blurring. I'll help you. I'll sit with you, drive you to appointments, whatever you need. But don't mistake that for forgetting. I'll never forget. You can't undo what you did to me. His face crumpled, but for the first time he didn't argue. He just whispered, "Thank you." Terry clapped me on the back, muttering, "Better than he deserves. But you're your mother's son. She'd be proud." The party never fully recovered after that. We still did the big reveal, popped the balloon, pink confetti raining down, everyone cheering weakly, but the mood was different, more heavy, more thoughtful. Guests gave me those looks, the kind where they didn't know if they should congratulate me or hug me. Later that night when Kayla and I were packing up, she asked if I was okay. I told her the truth. I don't know. Part of me was devastated. Part of me was angry, and part of me felt guilty for even letting him back in at all. But I knew one thing. Helping him didn't erase the past. It didn't wipe the slate clean. What it did was give me the power to decide how this story ended. Not him. Me. When our daughter is old enough to understand, I'll tell her the truth. Because at the end of the day, my wounds are still there. But so is my daughter. And she deserves a dad who shows up every single time.